The Kryvax Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol's Oort cloud, their crystalline ships refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. High Admiral Zenith stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, his iridescent scales shifting colors as he studied the primitive solar system before him. 300 years of conquest had taught the Kryvax that technological superiority meant everything. Their crystalline ships, powered by quantum singularities and capable of reshaping matter itself, had never met their match. Preliminary scans complete, High Admiral, reported First Observer Nixis, her tentacle-like sensory appendages waving in practiced patterns across the ship's neural interface. The dominant species appears to be in early space development. Chemical rockets, basic orbital stations, primitive nuclear fission. They haven't even achieved unified planetary governance. Zenith's inner eyelids clicked in amusement. Another primitive species that would be easy to subjugate. The Kryvax Empire had encountered dozens like them, young races that hadn't yet learned to harness the fundamental forces of the universe. They always surrendered quickly once they saw the Empire's true power. "Begin standard conquest protocols," Zenith commanded. "Deploy the Herald ships. Let them witness our might before we offer terms." 5 crystalline vessels broke formation, their surfaces shifting and flowing like liquid glass as they accelerated toward the inner solar system. They were works of art as much as weapons of war, designed to instill awe and terror in equal measure. Each could level a continent with ease. But deep beneath the lunar surface, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet's approach on quantum-entangled sensors that the Kryvax's scans hadn't detected. She allowed herself a small smile as she studied the data streaming across her holographic displays. "They're exactly what we expected," she said to General Marcus Santos, who stood beside her watching the same feed. "Crystalline-based technology, quantum manipulation, probably Type 2 on the Kardashev scale, and completely predictable in their arrogance." The general nodded grimly. "How long have we been preparing for this moment, Sarah?" 20 years. 30. 37 years. 4 months. And 16 days, she replied. "Ever since we detected their first scout probe at the edge of the system. They thought they were being subtle, but it gave us everything we needed. Samples of their technology, their command protocols, their entire communication structure. Around them, the lunar facility hummed with carefully contained power. What looked like primitive computer banks to casual inspection were actually quantum processors that made the Kryvax's systems look primitive by comparison. What appeared to be simple maintenance robots were advanced nanotech fabricators. Everything humanity had built in plain sight for the past 4 decades had been carefully crafted deception. "Signal the Sol Defense Network," Santos ordered. "All units to preliminary positions. Let's give our guests the welcome they deserve." Across the solar system, humanity's real technology began to wake up. Quantum-cloaked ships that had been hiding in plain sight powered up their systems. Dyson swarm components that the Kryvax had dismissed as simple solar collectors oriented themselves into weapon configurations. AI systems that had been modeling alien psychology for decades finalized their combat predictions. Meanwhile, the Herald ships approached Earth with majestic confidence. Their crystalline surfaces began to pulse with energy as they prepared to demonstrate their power to the primitive humans. The lead ship positioned itself over the North Atlantic, its weapon systems charging for a display that would show humanity the futility of resistance. On the eternal dawn, High Admiral Zenith received the first targeting solutions from the Herald ships. "A simple demonstration should suffice," he declared. "Vaporize one of their smaller cities. Something peripheral enough not to damage their industrial base, but large enough to make the point." First Observer Nixis began implementing the targeting sequence, but then paused. Her sensory appendages twitched in confusion. "High Admiral, something's wrong. The targeting systems, they're not responding correctly." Zenith's scales shifted to a darker hue of annoyance. "Explain." "The quantum matrices are. It's as if something is already inside them." The computational crystals are receiving conflicting commands, but I can't trace the source. In the lunar facility, Dr. Chen watched the confusion spreading through the alien fleet with satisfaction. Quantum infiltration protocols operating at 100% efficiency, she reported. Their systems never stood a chance. They based everything on crystalline quantum computers, never imagining someone else might have mastered the technology centuries ago and moved beyond it. General Santos allowed himself a thin smile. Send the message. Across every frequency the Kryvax used, in perfect replications of their own communication protocols, a simple message began to repeat. You have entered restricted space. You have 60 seconds to begin retreat procedures. This is your only warning. On the eternal dawn, High Admiral Zenith's scales bleached white with shock as his ship's systems began to shut down one by one, corrupted by quantum algorithms that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. The last thing he saw before the emergency pods ejected was Earth's moon seeming to ripple and shift, revealing rows upon rows of weapon systems that had been there all along, hidden behind quantum stealth fields that his people had thought impossible. Humanity's message had been simple. Run. The Kryvax Empire was about to learn why. The Kryvax Empire had never encountered defeat in 3 centuries of expansion. Their crystalline ships had laid waste to 1,000 worlds. Their quantum weaponry had shattered civilizations, and their technological supremacy had never been questioned. Until now. Full combat protocols. High Admiral Zenith roared as his command pod reintegrated with the secondary bridge of the Eternal Dawn. Launch all fighter squadrons. Power the main quantum arrays. But across the fleet, nothing responded as it should. Ships that had conquered entire star systems now hung dead in space, their crystalline matrices corrupted by invisible attackers that seemed to exist in the quantum realm itself. Fighter squadrons launched only to find their navigation systems compromised, their weapons refusing to charge, their very structures beginning to destabilize at the quantum level. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Chen watched the chaos unfold with clinical precision. Phase 2 initiating, she announced. Quantum destabilization cascades are exceeding projected effectiveness by 47%. The walls of the command center shimmered and transformed, revealing the true extent of humanity's technological achievement. What had appeared to be simple displays became neural interface systems far more advanced than anything the Kryvax had imagined possible. The entire room was actually a quantum computer more powerful than the combined processing capability of the entire Kryvax fleet. They based their entire civilization on crystalline quantum computing, Chen explained to the assembled command staff, never imagining that we'd moved past that technology centuries ago. Every attack they launch, every defense they try to mount, only gives our systems more access to their network. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden defenses reveal themselves. The asteroid belt, which the Kryvax had dismissed as a navigational hazard, transformed as millions of camouflaged platforms activated. What appeared to be simple mining operations on Mars unveiled themselves as massive weapon factories that had been producing quantum-based armaments for decades. Send in the Phantoms, General Santos ordered. From concealed hangars across the solar system, ships unlike anything the Kryvax had ever seen emerge. They were barely visible even to the naked eye, their surfaces seeming to absorb both light and sensor scans. They moved with impossible grace, their propulsion systems operating on principles that the Kryvax couldn't begin to comprehend. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, First Observer Nixus's sensory appendages writhed in panic. High Admiral, we're detecting something, but the sensors can't lock onto them. It's as if they're partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Impossible, Zenith snarled. No species at their technological level could achieve that kind of advancement. They were using chemical rockets mere decades ago. That's what we wanted you to think. Came a transmission on all frequencies, broadcast in perfect Kryvax language patterns. We've been watching you for a very long time, learning your weaknesses, understanding your limitations. Those chemical rockets, theater, Those primitive satellites. Camouflage. We knew you were coming, and we've been preparing for this moment for generations. The Phantom ships demonstrated exactly why they deserved their name. They sliced through the Kryvax fleet's formations as if the mighty warships weren't even there. Their weapons didn't simply damage the crystalline vessels. They rewrote the quantum structure of their targets, turning the Kryvax's own technology against them. Status report. Zenith demanded, his scales shifting through patterns of fear he hadn't experienced since his youth. We've lost contact with the entire third battle group, Nixus reported, her voice trembling. The fourth and fifth are reporting critical quantum matrix failures. Our weapons, High Admiral, our weapons are being turned against us. The humans aren't just defeating our technology. They're understanding it better than we do. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Chen pulled up a new set of holographic displays. They're attempting to regroup for a counterattack, she noted. Exactly as the AI models predicted. Time to show them why that's a very bad idea. At her command, the quantum infiltration of the Kryvax systems reached its next phase. The crystalline ship's own computational matrices began to fragment, not through crude destruction, but through precise manipulation of their quantum states. Systems that had taken the Empire centuries to perfect were being rewritten in minutes. You don't understand, the human transmission continued, broadcasting directly into every Kryvax command center. We could have destroyed your fleet the moment you arrived, but we wanted you to see. We wanted you to understand. The galaxy is larger than you imagined, and there are some lines that should not be crossed. The Phantom ships began their final attack run, their impossible movements creating patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They weren't simply fighting the Kryvax fleet. They were systematically dismantling it, reducing the most powerful warships in known space to their component atoms with surgical precision. High Admiral Zenith watched his mighty fleet crumbling before him, his scales now a pale shade of defeat. In 3 centuries of warfare, the Kryvax had never encountered anything like this. They had assumed their crystalline technology represented the pinnacle of possible achievement. They had never imagined that another species might have moved so far beyond it that their greatest weapons appeared primitive in comparison. "Signal the retreat," he whispered, his proud voice now trembling. "Full withdrawal. All ships. Before there are no ships left to withdraw." As the remnants of the once mighty Kryvax fleet fled in disarray, humanity's true face remained hidden behind its quantum veils. The solar system returned to its apparently primitive state, chemical rockets and simple satellites once again visible to casual observation. But now the galaxy knew, or thought it knew, what lay beneath that carefully crafted facade. And in the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Chen and General Santos shared a knowing look. "They still don't understand," Chen said softly. "What they saw today, it wasn't even close to what we're truly capable of." The Great Hall of the Kryvax Empire had never known silence like this. The crystalline dome that had witnessed the planning of 1,000 conquests now echoed with the unthinkable sound of defeat. High Admiral Zenith stood before the Imperial Council, his scales still bearing the pale hue of shock as holographic displays showed the devastation of their fleet. "They were waiting for us," he reported, each word tasting like ash. "Everything we thought we knew about them was wrong. The primitive technology we observed was a facade. Their true capabilities." His voice trailed off as the recordings played again. Phantom ships moving like ghosts through their formations, quantum weapons turning their own technology against them. Supreme Commander Vix, her ancient scales bearing the deep purple of authority, leaned forward on her crystalline throne. "How is this possible? Our scout probes observed them for decades. They were using chemical propulsion, primitive fission power. They had not even achieved planetary unification." In the depths of Europa's hidden research facilities, Dr. Elena Martinez watched the quantum-intercepted feed of the Kryvax Council meeting with interest. The facility around her hummed with power that would make the Empire's best technology look like children's toys. "They're still thinking in linear terms," She noted to Admiral Sarah Chen, who had been promoted after the battle. They can't conceive of a civilization developing differently than they did. The Admiral nodded, her holographic interface showing real-time updates from across the solar system. That's always been their weakness. They believe technological advancement follows a fixed path. They never considered that we might have taken a different route entirely. Deep in the facility's quantum computing core, an AI system that the Krivaks couldn't even comprehend was processing the Empire's entire known history, analyzing every battle, every conquest, every diplomatic exchange. It wasn't just learning their tactics, it was understanding their civilization at a fundamental level. They're mobilizing their reserve fleets, Martinez observed, watching patterns of quantum disturbance ripple across the galactic arm. 3 main battle groups, each larger than the force we defeated. They still think this is about military power. Chen's expression hardened. Then it's time for Phase 3. Initiate Ghost Protocol. Across human space, a new kind of weapon began to wake up. Not the obvious military hardware that had shocked the first Krivaks fleet, but something far more subtle and devastating. Quantum infiltrators, programs that existed in the spaces between normal matter, began to spread through the Empire's communications network. In the Great Hall, Supreme Commander Vix was about to order the reserve fleets to launch when her neural interface suddenly filled with impossible information. Historical records began to change, tactical databases corrupted themselves, and communication networks started carrying phantom signals that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "We are being invaded," the Empire's primary AI announced, its crystalline matrix flickering with uncertainty. But not by ships or weapons. They are inside our networks, inside our quantum matrices. They are everywhere. The Ghost Protocol was humanity's masterpiece of psychological warfare. It didn't just attack the Empire's military capabilities. It made them question the very foundation of their civilization. Historical records showed impossible events. Sensor networks detected phantom fleets that vanished when investigated, and communication systems carried whispered warnings that seemed to come from the future. Your empire is built on crystalline computing. The human transmission began, broadcasting directly into the Great Hall. But did you ever ask yourselves why no other civilization you encountered used similar technology? Did you ever wonder if there might be a reason? In the Europa facility, Martinez watched the chaos spreading through the Empire's networks with clinical detachment. Quantum uncertainty cascades are exceeding projected effectiveness, she reported. Their entire command structure is beginning to fragment. The Ghost Protocol wasn't designed to destroy the Krivaks Empire. It was designed to make them destroy themselves. Every attempt to investigate the phantom signals led them deeper into carefully crafted deceptions. Every effort to trace the source of the corruption only spread it further. "We're detecting massive fleet movements," Chen noted, studying the quantum sensor feeds. "But they're not advancing toward Sol. They're retreating, falling back to defensive positions around their core worlds." The Krivaks Empire had never known fear before. They had been the ones who inspired terror in others, who brought mighty civilizations to their knees. But now they faced an enemy that didn't just defeat their weapons. It made them question everything they thought they knew about reality itself. "We don't understand," Supreme Commander Vix transmitted. Her message carried on frequencies that she hoped the humans couldn't intercept. She was wrong. "Your technology, it defies everything we know about physical law." "No," came the reply, somehow emanating from the crystalline matrix of her throne itself. "It defies everything you chose to know. Your empire stopped looking for new paths centuries ago. You found one way to harness quantum technology and assumed it was the only way. We found another, and then another, and another." In the Great Hall, the holographic displays began to show impossible things. Human ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that didn't destroy but simply rewrote the quantum structure of matter, and defenses that made Einstein's laws of physics look like guidelines rather than rules. "Hold position," Vix commanded, her scales now showing the deep green of fear. All fleets, hold position. Do not advance on the Sol system. I repeat, do not advance. In the Europa facility, Martins and Chen shared a look of grim satisfaction. They're beginning to understand, Martins said softly. But they still don't grasp the full implications. Should we show them? Chen considered for a moment, watching the quantum feeds. No, she decided. Let them wonder. Let them question. That's the true power of the Ghost Protocol. It's not what we do to them. It's what they do to themselves out of fear of what we might do. The message was clear. The Galactic Empire had not just met its match. It had encountered something beyond its comprehension. And in the vast darkness between the stars, other civilizations watched and wondered what humanity would do next. The emergency session of the Krivak's High Council stretched into its third day as reports continued to flood in from across the Empire. It wasn't just their military that was failing. Their entire civilization was beginning to unravel. The crystalline chambers, once a symbol of their technological supremacy, now seemed fragile and primitive. The quantum corruption has spread to the outer colonies, reported Science Director Naira, her scales flickering between patterns of confusion and fear. Our communication networks are experiencing anomalies. Reality itself seems to be breaking down at the edges of our territory. Supreme Commander Vix watched the holographic displays with growing horror. The Ghost Protocol hadn't stopped with their military systems. It was systematically dismantling everything they thought they knew about the universe itself. In the Titan Research Complex, hidden beneath the methane seas of Saturn's largest moon, Dr. James Wong monitored the cascade of effects rippling through the Galactic Empire. The facility's quantum processors, operating on principles that would make the Empire's best scientists question their sanity, parsed through petabytes of data in microseconds. The psychological impact is exceeding our projections, he reported to the assembled human leadership. They're not just questioning their military capability. They're questioning their entire understanding of reality. Admiral Chen nodded, studying the real-time feeds. And the Ascension Protocol. Ready for implementation, Wang confirmed. Though I have to ask, are we sure we want to show them this much? The technology we've revealed so far has already shattered their worldview. This. He gestured at the classified specs, floating in a holographic display. This will break them completely. The Ascension Protocol was humanity's ultimate revelation. Technology so advanced it appeared to violate the fundamental laws of physics themselves. Not just quantum manipulation, but complete mastery over space, time, and reality itself. In the Krivak's Great Hall, the emergency session was interrupted by something impossible. The very fabric of space-time began to ripple and fold, revealing visions that defied comprehension. They saw human ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that didn't just destroy matter but rewrote the quantum laws governing its existence, and defensive systems that made their most advanced shields look like paper barriers. This isn't possible, Supreme Commander Vix whispered, her scales now completely white with terror. No species could advance this far this quickly. No civilization could hide this level of technology. You still don't understand, came the human transmission, somehow emanating from the quantum structure of reality itself. We didn't advance quickly. We advanced differently. While you were perfecting your crystalline computers, we were exploring the spaces between conventional physics. While you were conquering worlds, we were learning to reshape reality itself. The displays showed impossible things. Human facilities that existed partially outside normal spacetime, research centers that operated on principles that made quantum mechanics look simplistic, and defense systems that didn't just stop attacks. They prevented them from ever having been launched in the first place. In the Titan complex, one watched the Krivak's leadership's reaction with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. They're beginning to grasp it now, he noted. The true scope of their miscalculation. Show them the Omega simulation, Chen commanded. The holographic displays in the Great Hall shifted again, showing a simulation of what would happen if humanity decided to actually wage war against the Empire. It wasn't just about destroying their fleets or conquering their worlds. It was about unmaking their entire civilization at a fundamental level. Your empire is based on technology you barely understand. The transmission continued. You found one path to manipulating quantum reality and stopped looking for others. We never stopped looking. We never stopped questioning. We never stopped advancing. The simulation showed human ships that could traverse galaxies in moments, weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas, and defensive systems that existed outside the normal flow of time. But more terrifying than any of that was the casual ease with which humanity had hidden these capabilities, playing the role of a primitive civilization so convincingly that it had fooled the Empire's best observers for decades. "We don't want war," the transmission concluded. "We never did. That's why we let you see just enough of our capabilities to understand the futility of conflict. There are forces in this universe far beyond what your empire has imagined. We've spent centuries preparing not just for you, but for what lies beyond." In the Great Hall, Supreme Commander Vix made the hardest decision in the Empire's history. "Initiate full withdrawal," she commanded, her voice trembling. "Not just from the Sol system, from this entire sector of space. Mark it as prohibited territory. No Kryvax ship is to approach within 1,000 light-years of human space." As the Empire's fleets retreated in disarray, humanity's solar system once again appeared to return to its primitive state. Chemical rockets launched satellites, space stations orbited with apparent clumsiness, and radio signals leaked into space, carrying the chaotic messages of a supposedly divided species. But now the galaxy knew, or thought it knew, what lurked behind that carefully crafted facade. And in the depths of Titan, humanity's leaders prepared for the true challenges that lay ahead. The Kryvax Empire had been a test, a chance to perfect their deceptions and defensive protocols. The real threats, the ones they had spent centuries preparing for, were still out there in the darkness between the stars. 6 months after the Kryvax retreat, humanity's leaders gathered in a facility that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The quantum-shifted conference chamber beneath Europa's ice offered a view of multiple realities simultaneously, a casual display of technology that would have driven the Empire's best scientists mad. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled council, her holographic displays showing the ongoing collapse of the Kryvax Empire. "Their civilization is experiencing a fundamental crisis of confidence," she reported. "The revelation of our capabilities has triggered a cascade of social and political upheaval throughout their territory." Dr. Martinez stepped forward, her quantum interface showing data streams that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. "The Ghost Protocol exceeded all projections. They're not just retreating from our space, they're completely reevaluating their place in the galaxy. The mythology of their own supremacy has been shattered." But it was Dr. Wong who asked the question that hung in the quantum-shifted air. Was it necessary? The level of technology we revealed, it's attracted attention, not just from the Empire. The chamber's reality-bending displays shifted, showing movements in the deeper darkness between galaxies. Things that made the Kryvax Empire look primitive by comparison were stirring, their attention drawn by the ripples of humanity's revelations. "That was always the risk," came a new voice. Director Yuki Tanaka stepped out of a quantum fold, her presence simultaneously in multiple probability states. But it was also the point. The Kryvax were never the real threat. They were the test. The displays shifted again, showing the true scope of human civilization. While their solar system maintained its carefully crafted appearance of primitive technology, humanity's real presence extended far beyond conventional spacetime. Research facilities existed in quantum superposition throughout the galaxy, defense systems operated outside the normal flow of time, and observation posts monitored threats that the Kryvax couldn't even comprehend. "We've maintained the facade of a primitive civilization for centuries," Tanaka continued, "not to hide from empires like the Kryvax, but to prepare for what we detected coming from intergalactic space. The entities that created the quantum rifts we discovered in the Andromeda galaxy. The beings that leave entire star clusters shifted 5 degrees out of normal reality. The assembled leaders watched as the displays showed something massive stirring in the void between galaxies. The Kryvax Empire had thought themselves the pinnacle of evolution, but they were children playing with toys compared to the ancient forces that humanity had been quietly preparing to face. The Kryvax encounter served multiple purposes, Admiral Chen explained. It tested our containment protocols, validated our psychological warfare systems, and most importantly, it established our reputation in the galaxy while still concealing our true capabilities. Dr. Martinez's quantum interfaces showed the rippling effects of their strategy. Other civilizations are watching now, trying to understand what happened. They see a primitive species that somehow defeated the mighty Kryvax Empire. They're questioning everything they thought they knew about technological development, but none of them suspect the truth. The truth was that humanity had never followed the conventional path of technological evolution. While other species focused on mastering the physical universe, humanity had explored the spaces between conventional reality. They had discovered that quantum mechanics wasn't just a set of rules governing the universe. It was a user interface for rewriting those rules. The Kryvax Empire will survive, Wang noted, studying the probability streams. Their civilization will rebuild, but differently, more cautiously, more thoughtfully. They needed this lesson before the real threats arrive. Director Tanaka nodded, her quantum-shifted form rippling with purpose. And now we continue our real work. The Kryvax incident is closed, but it served its purpose. When the things we've detected in deep space finally reach our galaxy, they'll find it prepared. Not just humanity, but all the civilizations that will learn from what happened here. In the depths of space, humanity's true defense networks continued their silent vigil. Not the primitive satellites and space stations visible to casual observation, but arrays of quantum-shifted sensors that monitored threats operating on levels of reality that the Kryvax Empire had never imagined. The solar system appeared to return to normal. Chemical rockets launched satellites, radio signals leaked into space, and seemingly primitive ships explored their local space. But now that facade served a different purpose, not just to deceive potential invaders, but to prepare the galaxy for what was coming. And in the quantum-shifted chamber beneath Europa's ice, humanity's leaders continued their real work. The Kryvax Empire had been handled with a small fraction of their true capabilities, a carefully measured response designed to educate rather than destroy. The real challenges, the ones they had spent centuries preparing for, were still approaching from the darkness between galaxies. Humanity had never been primitive. They had simply chosen a different path, exploring the quantum nature of reality itself, while other civilizations focused on conventional technology. And now, as ancient forces stirred in the intergalactic void, that choice would prove to be the galaxy's best hope for survival. The message they had sent to the Kryvax Empire echoed through quantum-shifted space. Run. But the message they prepared for the greater threats approaching from deep space was different. We are ready. We have always been ready.